opening up episode 34 of the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not-so-classic genre cinema of yesteryear with the song Crazy Croupier from the band Jet Jaguars. It's from their album Milano Nero, and you can find them over at jetjaguars.bandcamp.com when you're done listening to this episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. My name's Derek M. Cook, the writer, host, and producer of this show, welcoming you to week 2 of KaiJuly 2025, where we are celebrating our love for the giant monster movies like Godzilla, Gamera, and all the rest. And this week we are chatting with somebody who also loves giant monster movies, Godzilla, Gamera, and all the rest. We're going to be talking with Bob Johnson. Now, if you're a podcast listener of, shows other than this one, you might be familiar with Bob because he's one of the co-hosts of the Planet 8 podcast. We're going to talk briefly about that, but the real reason he's here this week is he's also the man behind Godzillafest, which is a convention and a film festival that's happening. Well, the film festival happens next weekend, and then the convention itself happens September 20th and 21st. This is all coming soon, happening, and I cannot wait to get Bob on the show to tell you all about what he's got planned. You know, I would love to get to a Godzilla or Kaiju convention sometime in the near future. This one is getting added to my list of things to consider doing in 2026. In the meantime, I'm going to have to live vicariously through Bob and what he has to say about the film festival and the convention coming up here shortly. Of course, it would not be an episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio if we didn't have Mark Matzke here with the Beta Capsule review. We're still talking about Ultraman Ace, and we're going to get to that, sure. But I want to give a special shout out to Mark Matzke. Now, not only is he a contributor here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio, he's a Monster Kid Radio irregular, he's also a friend, and check this out. This is just mind-blowingly cool, and I am so excited and proud and just how awesome that he and his wife Sue were inducted into the G-Fan Hall of Fame at G-Fest 30 that just happened this past weekend. I mean, come on. We got a Hall of Famer contributing to this show. How cool is that? I want to give a huge shout out to Mark. I just on a personal level, dude, you've been working so hard for G-Fest. You've been working so hard to spread the word of Godzilla, Ultraman, and everything else. Well deserved, man. Thank you for all the work that you've done for us here. And thank you as a fan of all things Godzilla and Kaiju for all the work that you've done. Congratulations, Mark. Seriously, how cool is that? I also want to send a special thank you to Timothy Price, who has been on the show in the past as well, because not only did Mark reach out to me to share a picture of some things that were happening at G-Fest, so did Timothy, who is also out there. I haven't had Timothy on the show in a long time. I'd like to get him back on the show at some point in the future as well. Just seriously, all of you that were at G-Fest, I hope you had an amazing time. And if you want to come on the show and tell me all about it, I'm all ears, and I'm sure the listeners would be too. All right, let's go ahead and get into the rest of the show. We got the aforementioned Mark, and then we're going to get into the conversation about Godzillafest with Bob Johnson coming up right after this.
Most blood-chilling science fiction shockers, Island of the Burning Damned, and Godzilla's Revenge. In this quiet setting, a tale of prehistoric horror is about to unfold with the science-battling awakening of long-gone giants. Fighting amongst each other for the conquest of our planet. See the giant spiders spin their web of fear around their enemies. Godzilla's revenge knows no limit, no end. no stopping. See man's last attempt at saving humanity from destruction. And Godzilla's revenge. And on the same shot-filled program, Island of the Burning Dam. What is that strange noise and burning white heat that drove people to their death?
I have been convinced that this island has become the center of an invasion. The central landing point for beings from another planet.
What happens when an unknown power from outer space uses our radar signals as life-saving beacons to bring it to Earth to consume our energy? Island of the Burning Damned, an island desperate for help.
A remote Pacific island, where an expedition of world-famous scientists investigate incredible rumors of its fantastic mysteries and discover barren volcanic mountains surrounding strange green valleys. Mammoth caves that breed giant mutations. Vampire plants that devour humans. But most astounding of all, the tiniest women in all creation. Sacred beauties of a lost tribe which worships a monstrous creature. What is the secret of Mothra? What is the bizarre spell that awakens Mothra? As these doll-sized girls call to the super god from captivity. Mothra, whose revenge is more devastating than any man-made weapon. Mothra, who defies warplanes. Wrecks ocean liners. Smashes dams and bridges. Mothra, creating hurricanes. Mothra, enveloped in a shell that no human force can penetrate. Mothra, indestructible, all-powerful, indescribable. What kind of creature is this god monster, Mothra?
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Ultraman Ace, Episode 47, Salamander's Curse. The peace of Hinahara Village, nestled in the mountains, is demolished by the sudden appearance of terrible monster Hanzagiran, a giant salamander that eats livestock. Tak's investigation leads them to the residence of a limestone cave, Sakagami and his granddaughter Sayuri. The old man laughs when he hears of the destruction of the village, because he was opposed to their use of pesticides to the degree that he lost his home funding a protest, and sees the rampage as divine retribution. Sayuri demonstrates her connection to the mountain salamanders, but insists that they would not become violent. Both family members are shocked when their favorite pet salamander, Shobei, is transformed into a terrible monster by contact with sunlight. Sayuri, thinking quickly, plays a flute to calm the monster, but her grandfather seizes the opportunity to use Shobei to exact revenge. But when he orders the creature to kill Tak members, he pays a tremendous price. Episode 47, first shown on February 23, 1973, finds a way to put a child in the mix, and in the process rediscovers the heart that the previous couple of episodes were lacking. Salamander's Curse is also a vivid morality tale, further engaging viewers in the on-screen action. We want to see Sayuri's faith rewarded, and Grandfather Sakagami's disproportionate thirst for vengeance squashed. And it certainly is. At the same time, there's a welcome sense of relief regarding the fate of Shobei the Salamander, who has one of the best suit designs of the series as Hanzagiran, but is also a charmingly clumsy kaiju. It turns out there is a giant salamander festival every year on August 8th in Yubara, Maniwa City, Okayama Prefecture, to honor the animal and celebrate its life. The giant salamanders are indeed called Hanzaki in Yubara due to the belief that even if they are ripped in half, they continue to survive. For Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
Our planet may be doomed, our Earth devastated, the monsters are in revolt, and civilization is in chaos. Godzilla is laying waste to New York, Rodan is attacking Moscow, Manda is smashing London, and Peking trembles under the wrath of Mafra. Our battle cry must be, destroy all monsters. Who can say which country or city will be next? We must unite and destroy all monsters. Is there a way to defend against Godzilla, Rodan, Manda, and Mothra? The answer is no. Let our battle cry be, destroy all monsters. Be prepared. See for yourself, in color from American International. Destroy all monsters. Monsters. This picture is rated G for general audiences. Destroy all monsters.
Have something to share with Bride of Monster Kid Radio? You can email the show at monsterkidradio@gmail.com, or you can call and leave a voicemail at 360-524-2484.
Two giant monster films, The War of the Gargantuas and Monster Zero. See the two mighty Gargantuas battle to the death. And on the same program, Rodan and Godzilla join forces to destroy the deadly Monster Zero. The War of the Gargantuas and Monster Zero. Both in color, rated G, general audience, from United Productions of America, a subsidiary of DEI Industries.
Warning! Godzilla versus the Thing, a shattering motion picture not for the weak of heart. Here in all its astounding realism is a soul-shocking experience. How much terror can you stand? What was this thing of unbelievable and unequaled terror that challenged Godzilla to a battle of unhuman strength versus supernatural evil? Godzilla versus the Thing. See the War of the Giants. See the birth of the world's most terrifying monster. See armies of the world destroyed by the Thing. The producers of Godzilla vs. the Thing issue warning to those who cannot take its full horror. To you with guts, you must see Godzilla vs. the Thing from the beginning in color scope from American International.
Bride of Monster Kid Radio listeners, I'm excited for a lot of you who are right now at a convention celebrating all things kaiju. I couldn't go, so I did the next best thing. I got a hold of somebody who's going to be running a festival about Godzilla in a couple of weeks, actually in less than a week at this point. So I can talk with him a little bit, get my kaiju fan action going this way with Bob Johnson. Welcome to the show, sir.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we got two Godzillafest non-attendees here.
Yeah, it's going to be fun when you've got your thing going on and when we hear from everybody that's up at G-Fest right now. But I want to talk with you. I want to talk with you about kaiju, your love of kaiju. And I want to mention, before we get into any of this, you're also a podcaster.
Yes, I do the Planet 8 podcast with Larry Kakos and Karen Walker twice a month. We just released our 160th episode.
That's awesome.
That one was on Island of Lost Souls and Island of Dr. Moreau and all the different iterations. In fact, Karen does Echoes from the Satellite, her own podcast, where she talks about books. And so we're tying in with this one, and she's going to cover Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells.
That's super cool.
I hadn't seen it in a while. I rewatched it. I think that's my favorite version of all of them because it's so dark, almost noir. Bela Lugosi's amazing. It cracks me up because it was like just after Frankenstein came out, and Bela Lugosi turned down Frankenstein because he didn't want to put all that makeup on. And then Island of Lost Souls, he's got like a big mop on his face. It's like, well, all right, I guess he gave in. But
yeah, well, Charles Laughton in that as Moreau, he's the definitive for me. I've seen different versions of the story done on film. Charles Laughton's the one I'm always going to go to. He's the one that chills me the most.
No, he's got an excellent performance in that.
So good.
I remember seeing Island Dr. Moreau with Michael York and Barbara Carrera and all that in the theaters when it came out. And I'd watched it kind of sporadically here and there. And then watching it again for the podcast, I was like, yeah, it was good. It pretty much holds up. Makeup is good, but doesn't hold it for me up against Island of Lost Souls.
The one thing that movie's missing, though, are giant monsters.
Well, that's true.
I'm firmly of the opinion that everything could be made better with kaiju.
Well, definitely. We have a thing on a podcast where we always talk about, well, the movies we like have Kung Fu and Dynamite. And I kind of add Kung Fu, Dynamite, and Monsters.
There you go.
So it's kind of like if somebody invites me to a movie, I'll say, well, does it have Kung Fu, Dynamite, or Monsters? I'll forget it. Yeah. If it doesn't have one of those three, I can't do it.
Well, I want to get into Godzillafest and everything else, but there is something that we used to do on the show on a fairly regular basis. Haven't done it in a while, partly because the physical cards are in storage right now, but we have a game that we used to play on here called the Classic 5, where I would randomly draw cards that have a this or that, which movie do you prefer style question on them. They're icebreakers. There's no wrong answers, just a way to get monster kids talking about their favorite subject, monster movies, and I have a kaiju expansion. I've got all the questions here, so I'm just going to kind of randomly pick some from my spreadsheet. Bob, you ready to play around with the Classic 5?
Yeah, let's do it.
The Classic 5. The Classic 5.
All right, question number 1. Who is your favorite Godzilla foe?
I'm going to preface this with a couple answers. We actually did an episode on the podcast of our favorite monster designs, and I picked King Ghidorah.
Okay.
So I just think the 3 heads, the 2 tails is just amazing. I think the first time I saw him was actually in Monster Zero. And when the leader of Planet X says, I give you Monster Zero, and he presses the button and the screen comes up, and here's Ghidorah like flying over the hills of Planet X, and just the heads going everywhere and the tails flying. And I was like, oh man, this is amazing. I was a kid, of course. Even like later iterations, whether it was the 90s or, Godzilla King of the Monsters, whatever. Not quite the same as the Showa, because like I say, Showa, the heads were so out of control and they're bumping into each other and they're flying all over. And then they just stuck lightning bolts coming out whenever a mouth would open. And it's just like so frenetically crazy that it was just amazing. The other answer, though, would be X Plus was always asking, which monster should we do next? Or which monster? And for years, I kept saying Gabra. Give me Gabra. Give me Gabra. They finally did. It wasn't the big version. It was the 25 centimeter, but a lot of people hate on Godzilla's Revenge, but if you look at it as a kid's movie, it's actually pretty good. And you think about the things that it inspired. Obviously inspired Home Alone. And I think Minya was definitely an inspiration on Barney.
Oh, wow.
It carried on traditions for a while. But I always, Gabra's roar and grabbing Godzilla by the sides and you see all the lightning bolt electricity going up. I always thought that was really cool. Even though he was just in one movie and they never brought him back. Not even in Final Wars. It's like, come on, you could have you had monsters in there for like 2 minutes. You could have thrown a Gabra in there.
There you go.
But no, I don't really have a Godzilla foe I don't like. I mean, Gigan's great. Hetero's great. Love them all. But I'd say Ghidorah would be like number 1.
Question number 2. What's your favorite kaiju era? Showa, Heisei, or Millennium?
Well, this is an audio podcast, right? So no one can see all my gray hair. So,
hey, why do you think I shaved my head, man?
There you go. That may be coming next. I'd have to say Showa because that's what I grew up with. That's where my love of Godzilla started. And really, how can you top Honda? Now, Yamazaki, he's coming pretty close here, but his Honda, Tsuburaya, Ifukube, that was just an amazing era.
That's where the magic was.
Yeah, I would definitely have to show it. And, the first Godzilla movie I ever saw was, at the time it was called Godzilla versus the Thing. now I guess it's Mothra versus Godzilla, but that's the first one I saw, and that's one that hooked me. And since then, it's been my favorite movie of all time. So I guess it was all downhill after that. But I like the other eras as well. Showa was always my favorite. Probably put Millennium over Heisei.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because I like monsters grappling. Now, I love Biolante, and Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is good. But after that, then the grappling became mostly like shooting rays at each other. And Space Godzilla was just way down on my list. But, Space Godzilla reminds me of, especially the final battle. I mean, it's all like buildings and things against an infinite black background. That's what they did in Batman and Lost in Space in the third seasons when everything was the budgets were getting cut and everything. The sets would be set pieces in front of a black background because it was cheap and easy to do. And it almost seemed like that's where they were going with Space Godzilla. Destroyer kind of came and, made up for it. But I was kind of disappointed with Space Godzilla.
See, Space Godzilla is one of my favorites from that era. So,
oh, was it?
Yeah.
And then that meteor thing. No.
No wrong answers, man. No wrong answers.
I mean, Space Godzilla is a cool monster. And
yeah.
I guess there's some rumor floating around that he's going to be the next Legendary movie.
That's the word.
I got nothing against the monster, Space Godzilla. I mean, he's very cool.
Yeah. All right. Question number 3. What is your favorite flying kaiju?
Well, I already said Ghidorah, so I have to say something other than Ghidorah.
You can say Ghidorah again?
No, I'll go with Mothra.
Mothra?
Mothra is my favorite non-Godzilla film from Toho.
Okay.
Mainly because everything else was science fiction monster movies. Mothra was more of a fantasy. The way that, of course, the first film and probably GMK and maybe Tokyo SOS, when Mothra would fly, the wings would kind of bend and flap. Yeah, like I say, you get to like 92 and you get to Godzilla versus Mothra, and then the wings are pretty static, and she kind of glides. Yeah, no, it's pretty majestic, especially the first Mothra, because if you look at Mothra versus Godzilla, she's much bigger than in later films. And so the wingspan just dwarfs Godzilla in that. Whereas some of the other ones are much smaller. But yeah, I would have to say Mothra.
Fair enough. 4th question. If you could have any kaiju as a pet, which one would it be?
Oh, man. Try to see what could I fit in my house? Oh. Hey, I would actually go with Minya from Godzilla's Revenge.
Oh, yeah?
Then you got somebody to talk to, right? You can carry on a conversation. You can, he's not that big, so he fits in the house easily. So, yeah, I'd go Minya.
Minya, fair enough. All right. And final question. You mentioned Honda earlier. Of the 2 Ashiro Honda films that I'm about to mention, which one do you prefer? Frankenstein Conquers the World or War of the Gargantuas?
Oh, man. You're killing me. Well, I would say War of the Gargantuas, because I was going to mention that Mothra being my favorite non-Godzilla film, my second favorite was War of the Gargantuas. And so, yeah, I would definitely say War of the Gargantuas. Our first Godzillafest back in 2004, we got a 35 millimeter print of War of the Gargantuas to show at the Castro Theater in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, I'm going to try to call Russ Tamblyn. And, up to that point, the big rumor was he hated the movie. He hated talking about it. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. So I went through a friend of a friend of a friend, and I got hold of him. And I said, hey, Russ, I go, we've got a really nice 35 millimeter print of War of the Gargantuas that we're going to show as part of this Godzilla festival at the Castro Theater in San Francisco. And the Castro Theater is very prestigious. He's like, really? I go, yeah. I go, we'll fly you up. We'll put you in a hotel. We'll take care of you. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. So he came up and he sat there during the movie, watched the movie with an audience, and the audience was clapping and cheering and rooting on the brown gargantua and booing the green gargantua. It was really kind of an audience participation thing. So afterwards, he was going to come up on stage and answer some questions. So I caught him in the audience. I go, you ready to go up there? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I haven't seen that movie since I made it. In fact, I don't even think I looked at it after I made it, but it wasn't that bad. And he got all jazzed about it because everybody in the audience was getting into it. And so he got up there and everyone cheered for him. And basically we had about a half-hour interview and he answered whatever questions about War of the Gargantuas. And he's talked about it since. I've seen in other interviews where he's talked favorably about it. So I want to kind of think that we kind of got him out of his shell with that movie. And then he was like, hey, can I come back tomorrow and sign more autographs? I'm like, yeah, come on back. But that was one of my second favorite stories about the first Godzillafest. Because the first favorite story was one of our guests was Jerry Ito, who played Nelson in Mothra. And then we also had Hiroshi Koizumi. And we also had Ed Keene, who we found walking the streets of San Francisco. He was like selling like pens and mugs and things with your name on it, company names on them and stuff. And August Rigoni was he worked with us on the first one, and he found him and just met him on the street. He's like, are you Ed Keene? He goes, yeah. You were in Mothra? Yeah. So we had sort of a Mothra reunion. But we had Hiroshi Koizumi, we had Tsutomu Kitagawa, we had Akira Kubo. I think that's the only convention Kubo ever went to. And so when we opened up, everybody was basically lined up for the Japanese guests. Jerry Ito had almost nobody. He didn't even bring photos. I grabbed a lobby card I had, got it copied, and got a bunch of photos made so he had something to sign. But anyway, so I was kind of sitting with him. No one was paying attention. So that night we showed Mothra, and they saw his performance in that movie, and he just eats up the screen in any scene he's in. And after the movie, they just piled on his table. Like they kind of realized who he was, and they're like, oh, God, we got to get his autograph. That was great. Just seeing him getting ignored in favor of the Japanese guests, and then actually the total opposite after the movie. So.
How cool is that? That's awesome. And that's a great segue, to go from the Classic Five to talking about Godzillafest. It started in 2004?
2004. In fact, one last story about 2004.
Yeah?
Even though I got a bunch, is one thing I did not realize when I went and picked up Jerry Ito and his wife at the airport. First thing she said was, is Koizumi-san here? I go, no, he's back at the theater. We're going there now. Well, Koizumi and Ito were both in Mothra. What I didn't know is they became like best of friends, but they haven't seen each other in like 40 years.
Oh, wow.
And so we got to the theater and it was this big hugging and, cheerful reunion and everything. And then at the very end of the show, when they all had to leave and Koizumi was in his car and Jerry Ito went over and they were crying. Because basically they're both old. So they figured that's the last time they're ever going to see each other. And so it was like, these are kind of, you put on these shows, you don't expect things like that to actually happen, where you have all these emotional things going on.
That's really neat. I mean, you're helping to build or establish memories and connections, not just with the fans, but with the guests as well, it sounds like, which is great.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
What made you decide you needed to do a Godzilla movie film festival?
Well, way back, there was this show in Oakland called Thrillville. And Will Viharo hosted it as Will the Thrill. His wife, Monica, was Monica the Tiki Goddess. And they had a tiki set, and they had a big wheel, and they'd get up, and they'd host the movie and spin the wheel and give out prizes and yuck it up and everything else. And then we would go down to the Egyptian in Hollywood, and they would show a movie and be very serious and very, talk about the film very scholarly. So I said to a couple friends of mine, like, man, we should do something kind of in between. Like, we don't yuck it up and then we don't take it too serious. There's got to be like a mid-ground that would work. And so we ended up doing the Dynamation Celebration. That was our first show. And we did it at Auctions by the Bay out in Alameda. This guy, Alan Michon, owned the theater. And he agreed to let it. He was showing like sci-fi movies every weekend and getting like 12, 15 people in there. we went over there for one. He goes, yeah, this is the last one because it's really not drawing. I said, well, we want to kind of get into this stuff. I go, why don't you extend it one more weekend and let us do something and let's see if we can get a crowd. And he had nothing to lose. He said, okay, that's fine. So we did the Dynamation celebration. We got quite a few guests. We got Phil Tippett from Tippett Studios. We got Webster Colcord, who's worked for Disney and a bunch of other different companies. He was working for Coppola. I think he's working for Tippett now. And then we got like 3 guys who had worked on Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach and, all the kind of stop motion. So we had a pretty good little thing there. And then we got John Stanley to host. John Stanley was the host of Creature Features here in San Francisco after Bob Wilkins left. And so we got John Stanley, we got the guests, we showed 20 Million Miles to Earth, and we showed Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. And we thought, okay, let's see how this does. We got 200 people in the theater. So it's like, okay, this is cool. And we had been talking to other theaters about maybe doing a Godzillafest. And this one guy, Alan Mashan, who owned the Balboa, he came up to us because he had originally turned us down. He saw the crowd. He was there. He comes up and goes, so you still want to do Godzillafest? I go, yeah, but we're in the Castro with it now. So yeah, Castro has a lot more seats than the Balboa. But here we are years later, we're back at the Balboa with a different owner. It's Adam Berger on now. But yeah, so we did Castro Theater. Saturday night was a big night. We had Mothra and Tokyo SOS and the 3 stars of Mothra there. And we had like 900 people in the theater. It was an amazing night.
It sounds fantastic.
Yeah, that obviously did really well. So then we decided, okay, let's keep doing it. We ended up doing it at the Bal Theater in San Leandro. And then we hooked up with the Balboa. The Balboa has been great. Very supportive. So we've been with them ever since. But I think this is probably our 8th or 9th Godzillafest at the Balboa.
What city is this in?
San Francisco.
It's San Francisco? Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, it's a little far for me to drive, but I want to make sure listeners, if they're in the area or are mobile and can get out to that area, they check it out. Because if you've been going since, what you said, 2004, that's...
Yeah. Planes, trains, and automobiles. Actually, you get a lot of people that come out from all over the place. So.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I wish I could remember the person's name. My wife and I were at Phoenix Fan Fusion not too long ago as part of our Lego group activities. And one of the artists there, as soon as I mentioned what I do with Bride of Monster Kid Radio, he mentioned Godzillafest happening.
Oh, really?
He was really excited about it. I guess he's going to be involved either as a vendor or something. And he was telling us about it. And it's like, oh, that's cool.
That's definitely cool. I mean, it's fun when you hear or see things like that out in the wild.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, you always say, okay, people who come, they talk about it, whatever. They had a Japanese Heritage Night at the Giants game. And so we went out to that and they had Godzilla. Everything was Godzilla themed last year for the 70th anniversary. And they had a big Godzilla mural in Giants or Oracle Park. I was going up and down the line handing out postcards for Godzillafest. Hey, we got Godzillafest coming up. And I handed it to this one guy. He goes, oh, yeah, I know about that. I go, really? How do you know about that? He goes, I listened to Planet 8. I was like, Call of the Wild. But we were eating lunch down the street from my house. There's a place, Godfather's Burger Lounge. And we're in there eating. And somebody came in wearing a Balboa Godzillafest t-shirt. People out there do pay attention.
So it's called Godzillafest. Is it strictly Godzilla Toho films, or do you branch out to some of the other non-Toho kaiju properties?
Yeah, I mean, we branch out. We had Daniel Craig as a guest one time. So we did Gamera Invades Godzillafest.
Okay.
And this time around, this is a big year for anniversaries. So some of the non-Godzilla films that have anniversaries are like the original Gamera. That's Gamera's 60th anniversary this year. Guardian of the Universe. There's Godzilla Raids Again. There's Monster Zero. Frankenstein Conquers the World has an anniversary, and we had it scheduled, but Janus Films owns the theatrical rights to both Frankenstein Conquers the World and Atragon. We were going to show both. And they said, oh, well, we don't have any media to send. A lot of times when distributors say we don't have media, they'll say, go ahead and find a collector's print or show a DVD or something, as long as you pay us a licensing fee. But they said, I guess through Toho said no. You know, if they don't have it, have the physical media, then no, you can't show it. So luckily, -1 popped up and took its place. So
Oh, well, there you go.
that we're showing Godzilla -1 twice in that weekend.
I can't imagine people complained about that.
No, not at all. In fact, I got notice from Toho that we're the only ones they said okay to show it.
Wow.
So that's cool. So yeah, we're gonna hype that up as much as we can. But yeah, no, we get to show it twice, which is nice because up until about a week and a half ago, we didn't think we were going to be showing it at all. Because we requested -1, we requested Shin Godzilla. Shin Godzilla is definitely out because G-Kids is doing a big release, 4K release of Shin Godzilla in August. So they didn't want us to jump the gun and show it in July. So they're like, well, no for Shin, but we'll let you have -1.
-1. My wife and I were in Kuwait when that came out because we were over there helping build a haunted house for a restaurant chain.
And noble cause.
And it was awesome, but we were so disappointed that it was not being shown over there. And I get it. Kuwait's movie policies are interesting, to say the least. So we couldn't see it. We ended up having to come home earlier than planned because my wife got injured working in the haunted house, tore an ACL. And one of the first things we did, the very first thing we did when we got back to the States was find a screening of -1.
Keith Aiken, who does Sci-Fi Japan with me, he and I got to go down for the premiere down in Hollywood, the whole red carpet thing and everything. Then I saw it like a week later with my family. And then -1 Color came out and we went and saw that. So I think I ended up seeing about 4 times in the theater.
And it's not enough because it's such a gorgeous film. I love that movie so much.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely.
So good.
Yeah.
You mentioned Sci-Fi Japan. Let's sidetrack to that real quick. Are you still involved with the Sci-Fi Japan website?
Well, Keith and I are partners, although I'm more of a silent partner these days because I've been doing all the Godzillafest stuff. And
Okay.
I don't know, somewhere along the line, I got like writer's block, and I still kind of have it. Because I used to write a bunch of articles for magazines and everything, and it's like, I don't know. Somewhere along the line, like I say, I got writer's block, and it's just never, the cloud has never lifted from my brain. But yeah, Keith and I kind of support each other all we can, and so obviously keep an eye on it and promote it when I can. So Keith is kind of the big driving force behind it. He and I started it, but he's the one that's really kept it going.
scifijapan.com is the website address on that, and I'll put a link in the show notes to there as well. But it's a great website. It's something that I've used for years as a resource. Whenever I feel the kaiju itch come in, I'm like, I should see what's going on over there. There are often giveaways and things that I've won stuff from before I even knew who anybody was over there.
Keith is on our board as well.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot of prizes at the convention. We got a lot of prizes last time from Playmates and Mondo and a lot of other different companies. Basically, over the years, Sci-Fi Japan has developed really close relationships, not only with the licensees, but also with the studios. So Sci-Fi Japan has access to all the latest press releases and press notes and everything else that goes out to the press sections of their websites and things. And Keith, he's able to just call the studio and say, hey, you got this coming out. I'd like to know more. And they'll send him stills and everything else. So Sci-Fi Japan tends to be on the cutting edge and all that new stuff.
It's a great resource. It really is. And I want listeners to check that out when they're done listening to this conversation and after they've booked their tickets for Godzillafest, of course.
Well, they're listening to this and typing on their phones, so they're probably looking right now.
So the festival's coming up here next weekend, actually.
This coming weekend, yeah.
Yeah, so this episode goes out late Sunday night, early Monday morning, so you've got a few days to get yourself to San Francisco. But if you miss that, you've got the convention happening. Now, I'm less familiar with what's going on with the convention, which is only a couple of years old at this point, so I guess that makes sense. Is that all weekend?
It is all weekend. Last year was the first one we did, and we did it in conjunction with Japantown. And the convention actually took place in Japantown, which was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
But now Japantown is like, they're doing renovations, they've got construction going on. it was kind of a push-pull with them to get things done. So we decided this year we're going to do it on our own. We went basically across Van Ness Avenue to the Holiday Inn Golden Gate. So we're in a hotel. Everything's all on one floor, which is cool. But we have a dealer's room, and we have, your typical toy dealers and artists and vendors. But we have Middle of Beyond has agreed to a table or a booth. Super 7 will be there with a booth. Super 7 was there last year. In fact, Super 7 did the program book and an exclusive figure for us all the way back in 2004. And Super 7 was just like a little store in Japantown. And so they've been with us for a long time. But we also have some that are interested that we need to talk to after San Diego is over. And that's like Cavity Color and Mondo and Paragon, Spiral Studios, a lot of the big licensees. Hopefully will be coming in. We're if you keep an eye on Godzillafest.com, there's a little blog section. You can get on a mailing list. We'll keep it all up to date on who's signed up for tables and who's coming in for booths. But we're right on the cusp right now of having to open up a second room for a second dealer's room. So that we may end up doing this week. But because right now we have like maybe 2 or 3 artists that kind of got displaced from the main dealer's room. And we either have to squeeze them in or we got to put them in a second one. But we also have a game room that'll be going on. And the 2 guys that do the, I guess what they call themselves, Tokucade, they do the game room at G-Fest. And they're going to do a game room for us where they're going to have Xboxes and GameCubes and old PS2s. And they're going to have all the Godzilla games from over the decades there and available to play. I'm sure they'll be doing some tournaments as well. And then we've got some Godzilla pinball machines from Stern Pinball and Pinball Pirate. We also have Pinball Pirate wants to put in a Kong video game as well. So, or pinball machine as well. So we'll have probably 3 or 4 pinball machines, all the video games going on, and trying to get maybe a card tournament going as well. But that's all things we need to work on after this coming weekend and we live through the film festival. And of course, there'll be a panel room where we'll do panel discussions and demonstrations and interviews and things in there. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And then we'll have, that's Saturday, Sunday. Friday, we will have a meet and greet dinner at the Fermentation Lab in Japantown. Because we have a number of guests coming. We've got Tomoko Ai, who was in Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Okay.
We've got Hurricane Ryu, who was a storyboard artist on the Heisei films, but he also did double duty in some of the suits. So he played King Ghidorah in 91. He played Baby Godzilla in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. He played Godzilla Jr. in Destroya. He played Batra. So he'll be there. And he'll also be selling his art. And then we've got, for the 3rd time at our shows, we've got TJ Storm, who was Godzilla, the motion capture actor who played Godzilla in 2014 and Godzilla King of the Monsters. And he's also done other little films, like he was the Red Hulk in the last Captain America. He was Rocket Raccoon in some of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He played both Iron Man and Captain America in Civil War. And then we've got 2 guests that I know their names are pretty well known in fandom, Steve Rifle and Ed Gazazeski. And they came out obviously with that Ishiro Honda book a couple of years ago. And they're coming out with Godzilla 70-year history. And I think it's coming out this month, but they'll be hauling it along and signing copies at our show. And according to Steve, this thing is like the size of a phone book and weighs about 100 pounds. So it's like, whatever the price is on this thing is worth it. But the nice thing is they worked with Toho on it. So it wasn't like Toho, you have to pay $500 per photo or whatever. It's like they gave him carte blanche. And if you know Ed Gazazeski, he knows every single photo from every single book that exists. So when he got to go to Toho and rifle through all their files, he grabbed all the photos that have never been in books before or never been out in the wild. So this book will be really cool for Godzilla collectors. A lot of photos you've never seen before. And it's very excited to see that come out.
You mentioned pinball. Now, I don't talk about this a lot on the podcast, but it probably is no surprise to those who know me. I love pinball. I really do. And there have been some really, really cool, like, deluxe pinball games coming out over the past few years. There is an amazing Godzilla pinball game. I don't remember the manufacturer of it.
It's Stern Pinball.
Is it Stern? Is that the new one?
I went down to Toho in LA and they had one in the lobby or in their conference room. And I was able to play it. The only problem though is that the screen, what's going on the screen is so cool that you're watching that and you're not paying attention to where the ball is. So I really sucked when I played that game. But
I think that's by design, get more quarters.
There's a pinball museum in Alameda here, and they had Ultraman pinball machines. So same thing. I was playing that, but I'm watching the graphics, and it's like
the Ultraman one I haven't been able to find up here, so or down here in Arizona. I wish I could. I would
maybe
love.
We'll try to squeeze one into Godzillafest next year. But I do have a pinball machine in my basement.
Yeah.
When my wife passed away years ago and I had to sell my Hayward house. And so I had money to go in the bank. I told my daughter, I'm going to do one stupid thing with the money before I put the rest of it away, because I've never had money to do something stupid with. I got a hold of my friend who was into pinball. I said, look, I need you to find me a Creature from the Black Lagoon pinball machine. And so he goes, okay. So he put my name in some online ad thing. And I found one in Orlando for like $6,000. And I thought, well, man, that's a lot of glass and metal to ship across the country and all that. And then somebody got a hold of me from New Orleans, had one for $4,500. I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. I still have to ship it out, but that's not bad. I was about to pull the trigger on that. And I'm driving home from work and this guy calls me. He goes, are you still looking for a Creature from the Black Lagoon pinball machine? I'm like, yeah, I'm still looking. He goes, well, I've got one for $4,000. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I go, where are you located? Fremont, which was like 20 miles from me. I'm like, U-turn, drove over, took a look. Looks good. I'll take it. And so that's the one I got in really good condition too. But if you watch the Planet 8 podcast, I used to podcast from my monster garage where all the Godzilla and Ultraman stuff is. Now I'm podcasting from my basement in front of my creature corner, which has the pinball machine, all the creature paintings and figures and everything else in the background. So if you watch the newer episodes of Planet 8, you'll see the pinball machine in the background. Oh, yeah. And the beautiful thing about that is the drive-in in the game is called the Starlight Drive-In. And I grew up in Belmont, California. And down on the corner of Harbor and 101, there was a Starlight Drive-In. So I never really noticed. When I got the game, I put it in my garage, it says Starlight. I'm like, oh, check that out. But my friend who does pinball machines, he's like, oh, you can get all these modifications for it. You can make this light up and that light up, and you can replace all the bulbs with LED, and it really shines. And yeah, you can get stereo sound instead of the old pinball sound. But every single one is like $400 or $500 to do an upgrade. I'm like, nah, it is. But yeah, it was funny because last year we had Pinball Pirate brought out the Godzilla pinball machines for the convention. And jokingly, I'm like, oh, I got a pinball machine. I'll swap you for one of the Godzillas. And he's like, really? What do you got? And I go, I got Creature from Black Lagoon. He goes, okay. I'm like, yeah, well, I got to keep my creature. I can't do it. But yeah, it was like, Creature's gone up in price a lot since I bought it. So
there are a couple pinball locator websites you can go to, and Beth and I have found places that have that game. So I can get that fixed, but I haven't found the Ultraman yet. So,
well, I mean, we had them out at the show last year and they were all set to free play. So people go and play them all they want. Now it'll be the same thing this year. You can go in the game room and just play them to death if you want.
Oh man.
When you've got it, because I keep my creature game on free play. So it's like when you win a free game, it's not quite the same, but There's
a
when
good
you
point.
stuff some quarters in it and you win a free game.
That's a good point. So we're talking about Creature from the Black Lagoon. I can tell you've got an affinity or an affection for that. But what is it that makes you love kaiju enough to start a film festival, to start a convention? Why kaiju instead of some other facet of this classic monster movie?
Well, I mean, we've done close to 40 shows over the years, and not all have been Godzilla. We did a Creature from the Black Lagoon show at the Castro Theater. We had Julie Adams and Ben Chapman out as guests. We showed Creature and Revenge of the Creature in 3D, and we showed Creature Walks Among Us flat because it was never made in 3D. We've done, like I said, the Dynamation Celebration. We did another Harryhausen show where we had Ray Harryhausen's daughter out for that. We've done Bruce Lee. We've done Three Stooges. We've done James Bond. We've done quite a few different shows. We did 2 shows that were actually Creature Features Night at the Giants game. And we did those in conjunction with the San Francisco Giants. And so it was a Saturday. The first one was a Saturday night in 2009. And we showed Night of the Living Dead. So basically you went to they had a night game. It was like Saturday night, 6:00 game. So about 9:00 game was over. People with a Creature Features ticket could go down on the field. They got a shirt. They got chances to win prizes, and they got to sit in the outfield and watch Night of the Living Dead on the big scoreboard screen.
Oh, wow.
And we had Judith O'Dea out as the guest, who played Barbara in Night of the Living Dead. So that was really cool because I was sitting next to her during the movie, and she's doing, it was almost like an audio commentary as it was going on. At one point, she's like, look at my arm, look at my arm. You see those bruises on my arm? She goes, when Dwayne Jones grabbed her by the arms, she goes, he grabbed me so tight, he left bruises on my arms, and you can see him for the rest of the movie. It was a lot of fun. So we did it again in 2010 with Creature from the Black Lagoon on the big scoreboard screen. And the funniest thing about that one, we had John Stanley host both shows
Okay.
for Creature Features. The second time we did it, I got a call from Greg Kinn, who used to be in the Greg Kinn Band back in the 80s. They did My Love's in Jeopardy and the Aha song or whatever. He calls me up. He goes, hey, I heard you're doing Creature Features Night at the Giants game. He goes, do you need a host? I'm like, well, no, we got John Stanley as host. He goes, I love John Stanley. Can I introduce John Stanley? I'm like, all right, come on out. So I got up. I introduced Greg Kinn. Greg Kinn introduced John Stanley. John Stanley introduced the movie, and off we went.
Okay.
And so you never know who you're going to hear from and who is actually, fans of this kind of stuff. But yeah, and Creature from Black Lagoon, that was, we're on Zoom, and none of the people in the audience can see it, but I do have a Creature from the Black Lagoon tattoo on my right arm, courtesy of Matt Frank. He drew that for me.
Oh, wow.
So, in fact, I saw Matt in a couple of Monster Paloozas, or one Monster Palooza ago, and he's like, all right, you got to show it to me. You got to show me the tattoo. I pulled it up. There it was. That's the first time he actually saw it in the flesh, so to speak. But yeah, I know we've all the people in our group, we all have a love for Godzilla and kaiju and all that. So we did that first Godzillafest, and then when we wound up at the Bow Theater, we started doing it again. And at that point, we did it every year since. And it's just a labor of love just to be able to see. And when you do something like that where, obviously all other shows are so eclectic and different, you don't always get the same people. You'll get Bond fans, or you'll get Bruce Lee fans, or you'll get Harryhausen fans. But Godzillafest, we get a lot of the same people all the time. So there's kids that were like 3 feet tall when we first started doing this, and now they're taller than me. And they're still coming out to it. There's one guy who always brings his grandkids every year. They come down from Reno, I think, and he brings his kids down. Every year we're doing this. This last year, when we did the convention, one woman said, "Oh, we're here from Pennsylvania." I go, "Really? You're here from Pennsylvania?" She goes, "Every year I let my son choose what vacation he wants to take, and this year he chose Godzillafest." I'm like, "Oh, that's great! Make sure they get prizes." So,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great to see a lot of these guys. There's this one family, the Greens, that would come out every year, and their son Eric now is fighting cancer, in and out of the hospital, so they haven't been able to come to the shows lately. But it's like they were family. It's like they'd come out every year. Hey, they're here. Yeah, if you ever see Eric Green on Facebook, give him a shout out. I don't know if you heard of Lenny Romero.
Lenny Romero.
He does these really intricate pencil drawings
Okay.
of Godzilla and all the monsters and things. And he started out, we had a Godzilla art contest at one of our shows, and he just started out as one of the contestants, and he ended up winning the art show. And from there, we let him have tables at our shows, and he got up the confidence, and now he does San Diego, and he does shows all over the country now. But yeah, he's got some really cool art if you ever want to check him out, Lenny Romero.
I'll look him up for sure.
They look like black and white stills. They're so detailed.
There's another name that's catching my eye when I look at the list of some of the dealers and vendors you've got. Friend of the show, Monster Kid Radio Irregular, Ricardo Delgado.
Yeah.
He's a dear friend, personal friend of mine and Beth's. He's really an important person to us. So that's cool to see that he's going to be a vendor there.
He's good friends with Keith, which I think is what got him in. And it's like we have these guests, but then suddenly Ricardo Delgado gets a table and Brian McKinney just got a table. So it's like, okay, these are guys who could be guests, and, we've already spent our guest budget, but it's cool they're coming in with tables, and, we'll beef them up next time. But
there you go.
Brian McKinney did a lot of the interiors for a lot of the IDW comics, but he also did storyboards for Batman Beyond, Brave and the Bold, Beyond, whatever. A lot of the DC cartoons and some of the Marvel cartoons and stuff. So
okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just a focus then on the films themselves. It sounds like it's the entire medium of just kaiju, giant monsters. You've got comic book stuff. You've got people that work like behind the scenes in the films doing like storyboards and things like that. And then the monsters themselves.
Over the years, even before we started doing these shows, I used to do a lot. We've kind of parted ways since then. I used to do a lot with August Dragoni, and we did Marklight Magazine, we did Japanese fantasy film fairs, we did Japanese Superhero Now panels for WonderCon and things. The whole thing is, okay, Godzilla's a cool character and the monsters are cool and all that is cool. But instead of concentrating on Godzilla had 3 toes in this movie and 4 toes in that movie, it's more like the people who made it, the people who acted in it, and how things were made and how things were done and how things developed, a lot of the behind the scenes type things. And it's more like looking at them as films rather than looking at them as real life characters, basically. Not that we don't enjoy watching Godzilla movies and seeing the monsters fight and all that, but being a kid who grew up on famous Monsters of Filmland and then later other, Cinefantastique and all that. That's when you first started to discover, okay, there are people that get in suits and, they do all these different things. And, look how many wires Ghidorah has, or, Godzilla's got wires on his tail to make it move. I always thought he dragged it along, so it's always cool to, and, you say, oh, this guy wrote these movies and that guy wrote those movies, and I can, tell the difference between their styles now, and then you trace the actors from movie to movie, and not just in the Godzilla films, but in Kurosawa films and Yakuza films and everything else. And it's like, there's a movie called The Big Boss, not the Bruce Lee film, but it's a Japanese movie called Big Boss, and it stars Akira Takarada, and he plays a nightclub singer, sort of an Elvis type, that gets caught up in all these gangster escapades. And it's like a really good movie. There's obviously no monsters in it, but Akira Takarada, I always thought he was one of the coolest looking actors in any of the Godzilla movies. And to see him in this one where he's singing and doing all this stuff, it's like, it's amazing. I heard a story from G-Fest one time when he was out there, and they went to some store or something. There was this Japanese woman in the store and instantly recognized him, not from Godzilla movies, but from Japanese plays and musicals. He's very big in that. He was very big in that in Japan. So there's this whole world outside of Godzilla where these actors are participating in things they're known for that we would never know. just watching the movies.
Well, and I think that's something that's easy to forget too, is that, the Godzilla movies are fantastic and we love them. And that's what we know Toho for, as monster kids.
Mm-hmm.
But Toho was doing movies before Godzilla. They were doing other movies while Godzilla was happening. They're still active today in a lot of non-kaiju, non-Godzilla material and media. And I think that's something that it's easy to forget, that Toho feels like they made these movies for us, but it's not the only thing they do. They're seeing other people too. We have an open relationship.
You look at, like, you were mentioning Frankenstein Conquers the World earlier. You got Nick Adams in that. You got Nick Adams, Monster Zero. But he also did a movie called The Killing Bottle, which is, sort of like a gangster film that hasn't really ever seen the light of day over here. But, if you're a Nick Adams fan, then that's something you need to search out. Just because it was the third film he did when he went over there.
I love Nick Adams. I'm a huge Nick Adams fan. So if I was answering that question earlier, I would always go to Frankenstein Conquers the World because I love Nick Adams. I'm a big fan of his, and he unfortunately left us way too early. But I love all the stuff that he gave us, not just genre wise, although I do love Die Monster Die as well. I love his stuff. I love his work. And so you start to branch out and see all this other stuff that they've done, which, it's just cool stuff, man.
Yeah. I got hooked lately on MeTV Plus on Sunday nights, watching Hawaiian Eye and 77 Sunset Strip, two old TV shows. And it's amazing some of the actors you see showing up in there. Oh, God, that's so-and-so, all that. Or, go back and watch Ed Sullivan and you see the Peanuts singing on Ed Sullivan. It's like, okay, I had no idea till later in life that ever happened. But when we did our first Godzillafest, the Egyptian down in Hollywood did their own 50th anniversary Godzilla show. And they had Nick Adams' son there.
Oh, nice.
And so, he just showed up. My father went over and made a couple B movies over there. And then Keith and I sat in front of him when they showed Monster Zero. And much like Russ Tamblyn and Warrior Gargantuas, Monster Zero came up, and of course, everyone was cheering for Nick Adams and laughing at his lines and everything else and cheering for the movie. And you'd look back and his son was like suddenly sitting up and proud, and he's like, I didn't realize that those movies were any good. He goes, I never saw those before. And so now it's like, he knows what his dad did. He knows the kind of performances he gave. And then it's suddenly he's very proud. Yeah. The other funny thing was they had George Takei there. Keith and I went up to talk to George Takei because he did voices in Rodan and H-Man and Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. So we were asking him about that. And he was all talking it up and chatting it up and everything else, because it wasn't like somebody asking him a Star Trek question for the millionth time. It's like, ooh, I get to talk about something else. Yeah, he was really cool.
And my wife found it totally amusing when we were watching some of the earlier Godzilla movies and watching the dubs. It was like, if you listen, you're going to hear him.
Yeah, that's the one thing, because it's like, first thing people ask me at these shows, and we have it all listed this time, which ones are dubbed and which ones are subbed. And so we've got Friday night. Generally, anything that happens like a matinee before 5 o'clock, we do dubbed. Anything that happens after 5 o'clock at night, we do subbed. But we got Monster Zero on Friday night, and we have it dubbed because I want people to hear Nick Adams' voice. Because you show it subbed, then his voice is dubbed by an actor from Japan.
Yeah.
And then there's another dub, I think it's the international dub where it's not his voice. So we're gonna show the right one on Friday night, because you can't watch that movie and not listen and hear Nick Adams.
And I don't know if it's because I've just become obsessed with him to a level that's probably a little unhealthy. Like I have this fantasy, like if I could go back in time and collect my favorite actors from these movies and create it like a series or whatever, I would pick Nick Adams and John Agar in a car driving across the country, fighting monsters, and Whit Bissell is the mechanic. That's
I always said if there was ever a story of my life and he was still alive, I would want it to be narrated by Whit Bissell.
There you go.
Old Monster Zero story too, where Akira Takarada, well, Nick Adams asked Akira Takarada if he could get Toshiro Mifune to dub his voice, Japanese. And Akira Takarada goes, "Yeah, you get John Wayne to dub mine in the English version." And of course, neither of them got those actors.
Yeah, but just to imagine. So you're talking about subbed and dubbed. I got asked the question, do you show digital or film, a mix of both at the festival?
Well, a lot of times when you rent these movies or you license these films, much like the films you see in theaters today, you aren't seeing film. You're seeing DCP, which is like digital cinema projection. So what happens is when you rent these movies or license these movies, you get a download key and you download it from their server and you're basically showing it from their server. And then when your rental period is up or your license period is up, the key's no good. Before, like when we did the first Godzillafest at the Castro Theater, I remember going up to the projection booth and there were just stacks and stacks of canisters with reels of film. And a lot of the movies were on film and they looked beautiful, but that's a lot of cost shipping back and forth to get those in and out, especially if it's something that like no one here has the rights to, so you got to ship it in from Japan. And especially now with tariffs and with shipping the way it is, it would be really expensive. But yeah, a lot of the studios, they don't really provide film unless it's like some archive thing. But most of ours are digital. We have found collector's prints here and there, 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter on stuff. But you take a chance too. As film gets old and it starts turning red, or it has splice marks, or it breaks in the middle of the film. So it's a give and take. When a film looks good, it looks really good. But when it doesn't look good, it doesn't really look good. We did get Ed Godzillesky's print of Godzilla King of the Monsters, the Raymond Burr version, for the Castro show. And what we noticed at the end of the movie is it had the credits on that kind of swirly looking background.
Okay.
That's the only print that has that. So now when you see it on a Criterion disc or you see it on Pluto TV or whatever, those were all taken from Ed's print because that's the only one existing that still has that ending on it. Then we had, like I said, we found a 35 millimeter collector's print for War of the Gargantuas. We got, Ed had a 35 millimeter of Rodan that we showed. So yeah, it's really kind of depends on what you can find. But like I say, we had a couple, the Harryhausen show, we had a collector's print of Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, a 16 millimeter. And it was just all okay, wow. Do you want to show film, or do you want to show the best possible looking copy of whatever you're showing?
Sure. Yeah. And I understand that. And I think most film viewers get that too. There's a difference. You can tell film has a texture that digital doesn't, but if the film looks like garbage, what's the point?
If you don't take care of film, it ages very badly. So
I used to be a projectionist at a theater back in my film school days, because that's one of the things film geeks did for money, worked at a movie theater. And I worked for a company that had a warehouse full of old film prints and all that they would rent out at one point. And yeah, they take up a lot of space and they take a lot of care. They are susceptible to damage the way that I think a lot of people take for granted. So,
well, we've got three guys out here. There's Bob Ekman and there's Scott Moon and there's Paul Echeverry. They put on this Psychotronic Film Festival and they collect 16 millimeter film. So they're up there like DJs, just going reel to reel and showing stuff. When we got one of Ed's prints, I think it was Godzilla King of the Monsters, we showed it, and Bob Ekman basically came out to run the 16 millimeter projector, and he ended up cleaning the film and fixing some splice marks, and so sent it back much better than it came to us. So
nice. So I'm looking at the prices for Godzillafest.
Well, you're talking about the film festival, or you're talking about the convention?
I'm looking at the convention first of all.
Yeah, we've got daily prices, we've got weekend passes, we've got a VIP pass that also gets you into the guest dinner. The guest dinner alone is like $100, $125. But if you buy a guest pass or VIP pass, it's like $160. So you get the dinner plus you get both days of the convention. So it's very well worth it. And all the guests will be at the dinner. So that'll be nice. And so, like I said, it's at the Fermentation Lab, which is a real nice restaurant bar out there in Japantown, right in the middle of the heart of Japantown. So
very cool. Now the festival, though, the film fest, what does that cost to see these movies?
I mean, it's a regular movie. It's a regular movie ticket, like $12.50, $15, depending on if it's a matinee or a night. But you can buy a day pass for like $30.
All right.
And you can see as many movies as you want. So, I mean, we've got City Box Office. We're working with them to sell tickets to the convention. The Balboa sells all the tickets for the film festival. So they set the prices, they sell the tickets, and, we talk about a split at the end. Yeah. So it's generally, we try to keep it so we don't price people out. Because a lot of people like bring their family. We just added like kids' prices to the convention. And we just added group rates. So if you have 10 or more, you can get a discount on tickets. Plus you can get room discounts there at the hotel, which is always nice to have a room at the hotel and you just come out of the elevator and, hey, I'm at the convention. But hotel rooms can be very expensive in San Francisco. So I think the room rate at the Holiday Inn for the convention is like $189 a night. And, other hotels, they can go up to like $350, $400 a night. So we have to keep adding room blocks. So I don't think we've run out recently, but we got to check at some point.
And how much to rent a cot to just kind of sleep in the back of the theater so you can see all the movies?
Well, that you got to take up with the manager or the owner of the theater.
Well, I want people to check this out, and I want people to take plenty of pictures and post them on Facebook and everywhere else so I can live vicariously through you when you go to the film festival and to the convention. Godzillafest.com looks like it's the best place to go to find information about this.
If you go to Godzillafest.com, just click on shows and the whole schedule will come up with all the movies.
Well, Bob, I could sit here and talk about Godzilla movies with you forever. Really. But you've got a film festival and a convention to deal with, and I've got to have this episode ready to go out. So before we sign off, anything else we want to say about your upcoming shows, just to kind of maybe finally convince somebody that they need to go?
Well, like I say, the film festival, we've got that down to a science. So come on out. We know you'll have a good time. The convention, this is our second go-around. Learned a lot on the first go-around, so I think we've got a lot of the kinks all worked out. So it's like I said, it's all on one floor. It's not spread out all over Japantown this year. And between dealer's room and panels and the game room and whatever else we come up with, because we've got a couple more months to come up with more things, it should be a lot. It should be a lot of fun. And I think it's definitely worth the price of admission. People always add us to raise the price because, hey, we got to pay for all these hotel rooms and things. But, we just hope that enough people come out and support it. If we, don't lose our shirts, we'll do another one next year. And each year, hopefully it'll get a little bigger. And we've got not so much Toho support, but more like Toho is okay with us doing things, which is how we got some of the licensees for the dealer's room and how we got -1 for the film festival and things. So yeah, come on out. And if you come out to the convention, you can still hang out in Japantown, and right outside of the Daiso store in Japantown, there's the Godzilla mural by E.J. Sue up on the wall there. And we got that for the last show. We helped organize that, and it's still up. So you can go and take your picture in front of the mural and hang out, check it out. It's really cool. And a lot of times, like I say, with Godzilla Fest, Japantown last year they did a stamp rally. A lot of the stores got in Godzilla goods. So yeah, it'd be worth it. Just take a walk down the street, check out Japantown, and you've checked out the dealer's room. There's no panels you want to see at the moment. You've played a bunch of games. Well, you can go have lunch at Japantown and check out the mural and everything else going on down there. So should be a cool time.
Right on. Well, Bob, thanks again for doing this. I appreciate it. And if nothing else, listeners, if you don't make it to the film festival or the convention, check out the podcast, the Planet 8 podcast, which you can find on pretty much every podcast directory out there.
All the regular places you can find podcasts are also, if you want to look at our ugly mugs, you can watch YouTube. We're on there as well.
I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes to the YouTube channel as well for that ugly mug looking.
That's right.
We'll go from
if you don't think we're too ugly, then you can always subscribe and click like and
do all the things.
600 and something subscriptions now. So, we get 1,000, then we can start doing some live stuff and
there you go.
Doing some of the cool things.
Sounds good, man. Good luck with the shows.
All right. Thank you.
I hope you don't lose your shirt. And I hope they continue to go and become and stay profitable or at least enjoyable for years to come.
Here are the 7 wonders of the world rolled into one fantastic adventure. Frankenstein, born again to rule in terror, a monster unleashed to conquer all who stand in his destructive path. Frankenstein conquers the world. Spreading panic as millions flee his vengeance. Frankenstein towering over cities, defying the force of armies, the might of navies, and the fury of jets. Frankenstein, a name never equaled in the annals of terror. Frankenstein conquers the world. Stars Nick Adams as the American scientist versus Frankenstein, incarnate. With the strength of 1,000 men, a phenomenon such as never seen before. See Frankenstein Conquers the World, astounding on the giant screen, in Colorscope from American International Pictures.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. Thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. And I'm just going to preemptively thank you for liking, subscribing, thumbs upping, spreading the word, sharing, reposting, and all that other stuff that I'm hoping you're doing online when you listen to an episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. Please consider spreading the word and letting people know about what we do here, because the more, the merrier. It helps us out to spread our reach with what we do here at Bride of Monster Kid Radio. And really, I'm starting to learn that there are people out there that are into this kind of stuff that might not know about what we do. We ran into some of them when we went to Mad Monster Party over the weekend. By the way, special thanks to our mysterious benefactor. That's what I'm going to call you, because I don't know if you're comfortable with me sharing your name. But thanks to our mysterious benefactor, Beth and I were actually able to go to Mad Monster Party here in Arizona on Saturday. And I was representing, wearing my Crestwood House-inspired shirt, and I was approached by a number of people about what I did with that shirt and where they can get it, and talked a little bit about Monster Kid Radio, passed out some business cards, and, we may have made some contacts within the local community, which is really cool. But I'd like to continue to make contacts with the online community, and that's where you come in, by helping to spread the word. You might want to have people check out our website at monsterkidradio.net, where you're going to find links to everything that we've talked about here on the show. You're going to find links to Godzillafest and everything that Bob told you about. You're going to find a way to follow Mark Matzke online. You're going to find our contact information. Our voicemail line is 360-524-2484, or you can email me at monsterkidradio@gmail.com with your feedback. You're also going to find links to our Twitch stream, our YouTube channel, and our Patreon page. And I mention Patreon every week because Patreon is where we are going to be posting what's coming up on the next episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. You can follow us on Patreon for free. Of course, if you are a contributing patron, that helps us out too. But you can always follow us on Patreon for no extra charge, and you'll be notified about what's coming up on the next episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio when I post the show notes over there later this week. So make sure you check us out over there. I'm really excited about what I think we have lined up for next week's episode. Haven't recorded it yet. Should be recording it here soon. And if it goes through, man, it's a first-time experience for me. And sometimes those are my favorite episodes to do because I get to talk about something that I've never seen before. Fresh. This is going to be good. And speaking of upcoming events, okay, maybe not. That's an awkward transition. It's the end of the episode. What do you want from me? Speaking of upcoming events, I've got links to the upcoming Rayhausen Miniature Models of the Silver Screen event happening at the Mini Time Machine Museum of Miniatures in Tucson, Arizona. There's going to be a screening of Jason of the Argonauts at the Loft Cinema. There's going to be a Q&A with Vanessa Harryhausen. That's coming up later this year, and Beth and I are going to try to be there. Also, we are going to be at the Gathering of the Ghouls 2025, which is the horror convention put on by Terror Trader, which is a really cool horror and collectible store. Not really a thrift shop. It's kind of set up like an antique shop, but, it's just something but horror stuff. It's super cool. Anyway, Arizona's wildest horror party, the Gathering of the Ghouls, is happening September 20th and 21st, and Beth and I are going to be there. That's happening in Chandler, Arizona, so it's not going to be that far from where we are. So we got to check that out. There's other events coming up here soon, too, that we're hoping to find ways to get to. If you are aware of any events happening in the Arizona, especially the Phoenix area, and you want to see if we can get Bride of Monster Kid Radio there, reach out to them and tell them about us, or reach out to me and let me know about them, and then I'll reach out to them and see if we can get like press passes, media access, that sort of thing, because I want to record there and bring that to you here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Bride of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death, our other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, the Team Death YouTube channel, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. All previous episodes of this podcast, as well as the original Monster Kid Radio podcast, are available at www.monsterkidradio.net. Please rate and review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Crazy Croupier is copyright 2024, the Jet Jaguars. You can find them over at jetjaguars.bandcamp.com. Check out their album Milano Nero and let them know that you heard about it here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio, but don't tell them if I mispronounced the name of the album. I don't speak Italian, and I'm starting to doubt my pronunciation. But check out the song. It's really cool. My name is Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week. Ciao.